Well, Homer, wonderful to see you today. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview.
Great, delighted.
Yeah, well, before we get started, just wanted to get the correct spelling of your name for the record here.
Okay, my name is Homer Hartage, and it's spelled Homer, Homer, last name Hartage, Hartage.
Okay, fabulous. And what is your title?
I am the president of the Hartage Foundation, and we do business as aged care for our guardianship business.
Okay. And so today we're going to be talking about your brand new book. Tell me a little bit about how that came about.
Well, the book is an interesting story. One, I'm a professional guardian, so we take care of clients who have dementia or Alzheimer's or some type of developmental disability. And as I began to work my business, taking care of seniors, working with family members, it became obvious that there were thousands and thousands of children around the country, if not around the world, who were dealing with this issue from a different perspective. They were witnessing mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, particularly grandparents, go through what they call memory loss. They don't know who I am. They don't know who you are. They don't know where they are. So the issue became is how do we begin to address this? And as I started studying about how to address this, it became more and more obvious that we needed a clear-cut way to help parents talk to their children about what's happening to their grandparents. And then when you get what we call early onset dementia, where you have people that are getting dementia at as early as 48, 52, 54 years old, in these families, you actually have families where they are minor children. So this book is designed to put information in the hands of parents, educators, and children so that we can explain what's happening to grandparents in simple but concise scientific terms.
Okay, so you talked about the neurons in the brain. That seemed like the most complicated thing in the book. Tell me a little bit
Well,
about how difficult it was to bring it down to the level of a 5-year-old.
well, one of the tricks of writing a children's book, and remember, this is my first one, so I'm by no means an expert at this, but one of the tricks is being able to explain complex subjects or fun subjects in less than 37 pages and less than 750 words. So my wife owned a daycare for many years. We had a family here. And one of the things we learned from the daycare is that the time span for children is very short. It can be as short as 15 seconds. Some kids are longer, some kids are shorter. So that the challenge with writing a children's book is to explain simply what is Alzheimer's and what is happening. And that's what the book does on page and one slide. It's a clouding of the brain. Scientists call it plaque. You don't really have to understand what plaque is to understand that it clouds the brain and causes a grandparent not to remember as much. And so what you've done is you've used the correct scientific term, but you've put it in a flavor that's acceptable to children. All they want to know is something's happening to grandpa. Is it going to change? The answer is no, it's not. But you can still communicate with your grandparents, and this book shows you how to do that.
Okay, so who is Charlotte? Is she based on somebody that you know?
Well, it's an interesting subject. Her first name was Cindy. And when I started to talking with educators around Orlando about the book and the name Cindy, they said that the name resonates sharper if it's a different name, and Charlotte was a name that resonated with kids. And we talked to kids. It seems that was one that stuck. And later on, someone told me that it's probably because they know Charlotte's Web. I did not think of that in the beginning, but that's what I was told. But the name resonates from that, and the imagery of the kids of Charlotte actually came from a friend of mine. I saw a photograph of her daughter, and I actually asked them if I could use that imagery to capture what would appear to be a really precocious, smart young girl that's on the move.
Okay, very good.
Mhm.
So you said that you work as a guardian. You started a company that does guardian
Yes,
ad litem
yes.
work. Tell me a little bit about how you got into that line of work. Like you said, you right out of college, you went back to Leesburg and took a job.
Yeah.
What were you doing in Leesburg initially?
Well, I went to college, and I was a pre-med student in college. I graduated with a degree in psychology. So I came back, and the truth be told, my biggest ambition then was to get a job with a Fortune 100 company, spend 4.5 years, climbed the corporate track, ended up at regional and then at corporate as a vice president and then a president. So I had all these lofty dreams about what was going to happen. And I was fortunate that I came out of college with a good education, a good background, great school, and also with a good resume. I worked all through college, raised by a single mom, so I had to work. Some people say, well, even though it really wasn't quite that simple, but really we worked for extra money. We had plenty of everything we needed for survival. So when I came out of college, I got a job in my hometown first, which was with the Community Action Agency, and that was the social service work. But prior to that, I'd been involved in social service and political activism pretty much all of my young adult life, even through college. And then from that date, I got my next job, which was where I was climbing to with the Fortune 100, which was State Farm Insurance, and I was a claims adjuster. And I thought that this was the golden ticket. I last 4.5 years, and then I realized that the dream was still there, but I really wasn't cut out for the whole corporate track as it was set up. The vision of what the corporate track is. I really have an entrepreneurial and a creative spirit. And on a corporate track, the tracks are very good, but you really have to follow the track. And I wasn't very good at following the track. And I tell this joke often. I actually thought that the suggestion box was for where the smart people put in suggestions for how the company could change. I later found out is that that's where they filtered out the people, the crazies, I call them, people that have been there 1 week who thought they could change the whole world. And I was one of those people that thought I could change the whole world. I really wanted to make the world a better place and make corporations a better place. So from that date, I know I took that job July the 8th, 1978. And that is the only full-time corporate job I've ever held. So since that 4.5 year stint, I've actually been an entrepreneur running small business around the state of Florida. So my work history and social service history included 2 stints as an Orange County commissioner where I ran for office and won. So I served 8 years managing a $3.4 billion economy in Orlando, Florida, Orange County. And once I retired from that, we started running a family daycare. And I did help my wife most basically, but she pretty much ran that business. So after a few years of what I call discovery, I decided that I would be what's called a support coordinator, which means I would work with developmental disabilities with APD.
Okay,
and
so
I was taking the class,
coordinator?
a support coordinator working with APD, adults with disabilities. And so I was taking the class for that. In the very last class, I sat next to a lady named Mrs. Lonely, and she asked me why I was in the class, and I shared that I was going to be a support coordinator. And she said to me, "I'm not sure you want to do that. That's what I do. That's too hard." She said, "You should be a guardian." And so being new to the field, not understanding fully what support coordinators did, nor what guardians did, I followed her advice and took the class for guardianship, and of course passed the class and passed the state exam. And once I did that, I began the process of running my own guardianship company, which was really just a small private enterprise. But I clearly realized that it wasn't just a small enterprise. It was really where God had wanted me to be placed all along. So the entire 55 years that I've been working was really simply to get me to this spot, to let me understand that all the social service training, all the education, all the jobs and businesses in between was just really preparation for how you manage the care of people that sometimes can't tell the difference between one day and another. They actually have lost the capacity for memory. So what you're doing in that situation is you have become the decision maker for a large group of individuals, and that's where I fit. It's become a mission to me. It's my business mission. It's my spiritual mission, and it's where I fit. So we make decisions for people around the state. Everything from the time we appoint it to them, which may include something as simple as paying a utility bill, to managing all of their medical care, to managing all of their life health decisions, and even managing their transition from life if there's no family to do that. So and so doing that, we've encompassed a global approach to this, which includes children, and that led me to writing this series of books on Charlotte.
Okay, now what year did you start up the company?
2014.
2014. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did the foundation get formed?
A couple of years before that.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what the foundation does.
The foundation runs a host of business. Primarily, it's set up to run the daycare. It was previously run, a scholarship program where we gave scholarships to kids that were studying in STEM fields, and it also hosts the guardianship, which is aged care.
Say that again. You broke up a little.
Well, it ran the daycare, and it also runs the guardianship company. The guardianship company is called Aged Care, and we previously also ran scholarships for kids that were studying in STEM fields.
Okay, what does Aged Care do?
Aged Care is the guardianship company. We are fiduciaries and guardians.
Okay. And how
In
many
some
people
parts of the country, guardians are referred to as conservators, but essentially a guardian is someone that's appointed by the courts, usually to manage the affairs of incapacitated persons.
Okay. How many employees does Aged Care have?
Six. We have six highly qualified staff persons.
Okay. Okay. So back to the book now. How long of a process was actually coming up with the story and getting it done? I know what we had talked earlier, you'd mentioned something about a dream, but how long did it actually take between when you said you wanted to do a book and when it actually became a reality?
It took several years to actually do the book, but it didn't take several years to write it. It took several years of me rebelling against writing it. And I've since learned that a lot of authors go through the same thing. They have a urge to write, but they keep saying, well, maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow is like the horizon. You can never reach it. And so I didn't do it for many years, even though I had pretty much the full text. But one night, and I chronicle this in the biography of the book. One night, I actually woke up 3 times. The third time I woke up, and I hope you don't laugh at this, but I said, God, this can't be you because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't do anything at 3 o'clock in the morning except sleep. So I got up, but I couldn't remember what I was supposed to do. So I woke up a fourth time, and the fourth time I got up, it was I guess 5 o'clock, 5:30, and I started to writing, and I actually wrote from 5:30 until about 10 o'clock or 10:30 that morning, and that was the entire book.
Wonderful. Yeah, I get that way sometimes too, where an idea for an article or something will come to me. I'll be like half asleep, and then all of a sudden I'll spring up and have to go write it down on paper.
Well, that's scientific. Rest is the breeding ground for creativity.
Yes, it is. Agreed.
Rest and leisure.
Okay, so let's see. How many people do you think your company has served since your founding?
Oh my God. We have served probably north of 150. We currently serve about 95 clients. Okay.
And does it tend to be that when you become a guardian for somebody, does it tend to be a situation that lasts a couple of years, or are the majority of cases just a couple of weeks or a couple of months?
This is a very unique job. One, it lasts for the life of the client. So we take a client at 65, it's until their last breath. I think our oldest client was 103. In Florida, you cannot resign from guardianship. So you have to be very judicious about which clients you take and what staffing you have in place. So if we accept a client, the judge, we can petition the judge to relieve us from that client, but it's actually up to the judge to say you can be released. And normally the judge is going to be hesitant to do that unless you've also found a person to be what we call the successor guardian, someone that you're going to transition this person to. So we have a client for pretty much for life.
Okay. So
we are their family.
So what does that say? Since do you have any folks that you're still working with it since day one?
Yes, we do. Actually, I have my the second client I ever got. We still have.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that particular person, man or woman?
It's a female.
Okay, and what kinds of things do you do for her?
Well, let me share her unique story. We received her as a pro bono client, which means that the courts saw her as being indigent. She was a Latino female. She had been in the hospital 8 months. She wasn't sick. She just didn't have anyone that could sign her out or be responsible for her care. So the hospital contacted us. I can't remember if it was a hospital or the courts, and asked us if we would take this case. And since I didn't have any cases at all, it was an easy answer. We had one other case before that, and it was also taken as an indigent case, which is not unusual for guardians that are starting out. There's not a guardian in the state of Florida that's not taking pro bono cases. It's part of the nature of our business. But I took her case, and there was something unique about this person. Her hospital room was set up like a hotel room. She had put Darlies on her nightstand, and she had on pearls, and she had lipstick on. Her first question was, "Who are you?" And I told her my name. And she says, "Are you my lawyer?" I says, "No." Her third question was, "Can you get my lawyer?" So, so I told her we could, of course, work out all of those things. Following that, I started asking her questions. We call it finding questions, just familiarity questions. And she said that she had plenty of money, and she had told everybody that story. And they said, "Yes, and you have Alzheimer's too." So nobody paid attention. But I did. I listened to her whole story, but there was one point that really stood out. She said, well, I asked her, where did she live? She said, in New York. And she gave me her address. And I used to live in Jersey City, so I knew that address from me. I was familiar with that area. And I knew that it was within three blocks of Central Park. And just from life, you can't live 3 blocks from Central Park and be indigent. That does not work in America. So I asked the judge if she would allow me to go to New York and do a bit of investigative work. Turns out she was worth over $650,000, mostly in cash. We've had her now for over 12 years, and I still don't believe we've been able to locate all of her wealth. So we've been able to take care of her in really a great way. The interesting about that is that my office, my staff, and myself, I've become immersed within their family. We now take care of one of her I can't remember, it's a niece or cousin who's in our care, and we go to events, birthday parties with the family. It's just an interesting relationship. So you never really know where these kinds of things lead. But even in this family, there are young children that need to know what's happening. And so this book has the Memory Box, Charlotte's Big Surprise, has resonance in families like this. This particular family has a whole host of grandkids, nieces, and nephews. And so if you're looking at a holistic approach of care, you can't just take care of the person. It's their whole surroundings that make them who they are. It turns out that this person was a New York socialite. She was either director or assistant director of HR for a major city in New York. I believe it was New York City. So she was a lady of class, a lady of character, very what some may call highbrow. You know, she had good status in life, but you would have never known that because the court had labeled her as indigent. She was not anywhere near indigent.
But just nobody had taken the time to figure out what was going on.
That's correct.
So did she have Alzheimer's?
She had a what we call I'm going to use a scientific term. She had what we call a frontal lobe stroke, and she was home alone.
Okay.
So that caused her to represent as having dementia. But sometimes she would represent as having dementia, and sometimes she would represent as normal. But she really had dementia, which developed into full-blown Alzheimer's.
Okay. And how old is she?
I probably shouldn't reveal that, but she's north of 85.
Okay. I can say in her 80s. Okay. Okay. Well, you're going to be able to see the article once it's written and determine anything that you wish to change. So we'll make sure that everything gets done correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
But this book, if you've read the introduction in this book, it fits a unique space, and the information that's available as a core educational tool. There have been 3 books written on this subject, and I'm not going to try to call all 3 of them now, but they're mentioned in the introduction of this book. But one of the ones that stands out is one by Marie Shriver. It's called "What's Happening to Grandpa." And then I think there's another one called Mr. Green's, Mrs. Green's. But these are probably there are 3 or 4 really interesting books on this subject. But the last book written, I believe, was by Marie Shriver, and that was in 1994. So this builds on the themes that were advanced by those 4 authors, and it also brings it up to date. We're programmed for a Latino version of this. There'll be a Spanish version of this. We also programmed for a coloring book where kids will be able to color throughout this book, and that way the kids can be whatever ethnicity or whatever young kids may decide to do. Um, we want to get this book in the hands of 500,000 people as soon as we can. That's how important I think it is.
Okay. So how long did you work on it before you actually had the dream and everything? Was it close to a year? Was that 10 years?
Ask your question again.
How long, did it take from when the idea, hey, we need a children's book, came about to when it actually got started on it?
I started writing the book at 5:30 that morning, and I finished writing the book at 10:30, 11 o'clock that day.
Okay. Has it changed at all since then?
Well, of course, we have an editor. She's fixed my grammar. But the context of the book has remained the same since that very moment. Okay. Nothing has changed with the context.
Now, how are you publishing? Is it going through like an Ingram Spark, or is it going through another publishing company?
That is a dilemma. And that dilemma just unfolded as yesterday. Ingram Sparks is a great printer, great publisher when it comes to distribution. But in terms of the level of quality that we need for this book and the what they call the registration of the images, they're not capable of doing that. So this week we'll be looking for a new publisher. We're not going to go print on demand. It's going to have to be a more expensive process. It's going to have to be digital offset, and it's going to have to be hands-on. Ingram does an excellent job at print on demand and distribution, but it's essentially a big computer that's doing all the work. You really have to have someone that's doing this. So the images line up.
There is a company here in Minnesota that I can refer you to if you want to get a quote from them.
I need that most urgently. I'm looking at companies. I talked to one company that prints in China, which is really, it may sound far away, but nearly every major book company is already, no matter who you talk to, they're printing their books over in China. Yep. You talked, except for Ingram, they're doing print on demand.
Yeah, this one is called Itasca Books, Itasca, and they do digital offset printing right here in Minnesota, and then they also have a warehouse where they warehouse books, and then as they get orders, they take care of the fulfillment as well. I believe they actually send a number of copies to Ingram so that they're in the Barnes & Noble distribution system. And I can also help you with trying to get into Barnes & Noble proper onto the shelves. In order to make that happen, you need to provide them with a marketing plan.
We do have one.
Yeah, it's very good specifics on what you're going to be doing to drive traffic for the book.
Yeah.
And that's a combination of what I've already done for you and what you may have done on your own. And once we get that over to Itasca, they take care of getting it to their person at Barnes & Noble. So just let me know if you want me to refer you to them, and I can certainly.
I would be excited to do that, because other than that, I'll end up having two companies, one company doing printing and another company managing distribution. I really want to avoid that. I'm going to have to get a larger budget, because if you do digital, they're going to want you to print in large quantities. So having a company that actually stores them is better. The distribution is actually more of a challenge than the printing. There are lots of companies that can print a book.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few companies that can print and connect you with the distributors. That's where the real issue is. And also, you're not really going to. It's how do I say it? We're not focused so much on making money. If I sell 500,000 books, I will make some money. But the real issue is being able to get this book distributed widely so that people can determine if it has value for them. And until you do that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have to see if the people actually feel that it has value. And if it has value, they're going to move it around. But the field tests that we've done with people that know the book and know me have all been positive. The most common response from the book is that it made me tear up. And it has a happy ending, interestingly enough. But still, it's the emotional piece.
Right. Very good. Okay. Well, after this call, I will connect you with my contact at Itasca and see if they can give you a quote and hopefully help you out. I've done many campaigns with them over the years. They're good people.
Yes. Well, I trust you, and I know you. I feel like I do. So go ahead and send me what you have, and I hope this interview has been helpful. And I'm experimenting with recording this.
Questions for you. I'm almost done here. But one of the things I always ask authors is, if somebody were to ask you, what's your book about in a nutshell? How would you answer that question?
Oh, it's simple. This is a book that explains explains to kids what's happening to their grandparents when they start to lose their memory.
Yep, that is pretty simple.
That's what it
Okay.
does.
Yeah.
And it's
And
a
then
fun book. It's a fun book. It's colorful.
now, how did you manage to get Alzheimer's described so simply for kids to understand? Are those your words, or did you work with like a consultant who helped you kind of come up with the real simple explanation?
Um, my staff here often laugh at me because my head is full of stories and books. I'm a fanatic about reading books, science books, motivational books. And I'm what they call a technical reader. So I'm reading and listening technically. So and another thing that I notice about myself, I'm learning about myself even at 73. My
Mhm.
retention level is pretty much 80% on my first read of any article, 67 to 80%. So I'm reading science all the time. And I believe in science and math. I know we're in an environment now where people think science and math doesn't matter, but science and math is science and math. And so I study the science of my business. So I spend as much time marketing my business as I spend learning about it. So I am an academic when it comes to understanding what Alzheimer's is, what dementia is, what developmental disability is, what the laws governing guardianship is. And so if you're going to do this, eventually it sticks into your mind, this is what's happening with Alzheimer's. It's really a little bit more complicated than that scientifically, but that's the real big picture. Something is clouding up your ability to remember. And you could call it plaque, or you could call it tack, or you could call it anything you want, but there's something that's clouding up your ability to remember. And that's what the book is designed to do. There's something that's clouding this up. And that cloudiness is not going to go away. So if it's not going to go away, how do you create a new way to communicate? And those are the stories that I'm trying to tell. There's
Okay.
something that's clouding your ability to remember. It's not going to go away. Your grandparent, your grandfather, grandmother is also not going away because Alzheimer's is actually not a sickness. You can live 30, 40, 50 years with Alzheimer's. So you better find another way to communicate. And that's what Charlotte does. Charlotte finds a new way to communicate. And the story, that one page that explains what Alzheimer's is, also says, but they can remember things from a long time ago.
Right, exactly. Now, do you have a lot of clients that you work with who have grandchildren that would benefit from this book?
Um, I don't know. We know a lot of nieces and nephews. We don't always get the family. A lot of our clients have actually outlived their families. Some of them have outlived their children. And then some of them are estranged from their families. Their families don't understand how to deal with them, how to care for them. We have another whole group where the families are really engaged, except they're not capable of managing the complex arrangements of a person with Alzheimer's. We have several families like that. And you would say, well, why would a family that has all the means, some of them have PhDs, doctors, they're like you and I. But eventually you get to a point where you want to really be the daughter, or you want to be the son. You don't want to change the pins and feed people by mouth. It's love, but you really want to get back to being the daughter where you can love and be a caregiver. But if you're stuck in just being a caregiver and things get to a point where you can't manage your personal life, your family life, and another person's family life, then you need help. And it's an untold story. We worry more about the caregivers than we worry about the person with Alzheimer's. It's the caregiver that generally gets sick.
Hmm.
We can give excellent care to the person with Alzheimer's. We know how to do that. But the person that's trying to do things out of love and out of respect and out of honesty and all of those things, they get overwhelmed quickly and they actually end up getting sick.